Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, please don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes. These are all great companies that I used as an athletic director. You're going to be glad you used them too. So, here we go. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. When I was a football coach, I used Huddle for years and it was just fantastic. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Gipper. Gipper is the official social media graphic solution for our podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, they'll show you how to create world-class sports content to celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's diverse history, your proudest moments, and your top role models. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to thank Home Campus, the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also something you're going to use every single day as an athletic director for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communication with your coaches, your parents, your students, your state association, rosters, schedules, you name it. Home Campus is going to help you do your job better. And all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks on a fundraiser and ended up with little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraising platform out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, go to snapraise.com. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes or your parents, you're really missing out. ADs already get feedback, usually from the people that want to gripe about something. Athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that's going to help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. It's another one of our Back to College episodes, and we got a really cool guest who actually, we've got a connection, actually a couple of connections. Our guest today is HR, as in home run, HR Powell. HR is the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Miami Hurricane baseball program. Has a tremendous background in strength and conditioning, also as an athletic trainer. And again, we've got some mutual friends from Miami and Marathon, but HR, welcome to the Educational AD podcast.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, you were recommended highly by a good friend of mine, Teresa Conrad, the longtime athletic director at Marathon High School. Our teams used to go head to head, and she's your mother-in-law. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about that a little bit later. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us a little bit of your background, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the HR Powell origin story?
Yeah. So, I know I work at the University of Miami now, but I actually am originally from New Jersey. So I went to high school up in New Jersey, played college baseball up in New Jersey at Montclair State University. When I finished college, I kind of told myself that I never wanted to work in baseball. I remember saying that I don't want to watch anybody screw this game up. I'm too competitive. I don't want to watch anybody suck at it. It'd be too frustrating for me. And funny enough, my first job, actually, I applied for a high school job and was told that I didn't have enough experience. And then 2 days later, a professional baseball team from my hometown called me and offered me a position there as the athletic trainer, which was the Somerset Patriots up in New Jersey, which at the time was an independent baseball team, but is now as a AA affiliate with the New York Yankees. So that's where my career kind of started. And then, usually the next question people ask is, how do you go from New Jersey to Miami? How do you end up there? And in reality, it was completely unplanned and unexpected. But through my time working with Somerset, we actually had several people who worked or played for the University of Miami and the baseball program. So, or they trained there in the off season, whatever it may be. So what ended up happening was, one day I come into work, it's a normal day of work. And I think our starting center fielder was like, "Hey, do you want to go down to Miami?" And I'm like, "No." Where are you getting at here? What are you getting at here? I wasn't sure what he was asking. And he was like, "Look, I got a job opportunity for you down in Miami at the university as the athletic trainer for the baseball team." He's like, "I know you want to work in college baseball." And again, my initial reaction was like, absolutely not. Like, I was a homebody, kind of a mama's boy, wanted to stay home in New Jersey, the typical Italian family from the Northeast, not really leaving home. But what ended up happening was I took a chance, I took a visit down to Miami. I went in there with just the idea of like, I'm just going to get a free 2-day vacation. And what ended up, starting as a vacation turned into almost a 10-year long career now at this point. I was here as the athletic trainer, like I told you, for the first 4 years of my career. And then the last 5 seasons, I've been the team's strength and conditioning coach. So I made that transition back in 2019, 2020, right around that time there.
Well, I always like hearing about the journey that people take. I want to go back to your high school days in New Jersey. Now, obviously, baseball is sometimes a year-round sport in Miami and in South Florida. I'm going to guess you weren't playing winter ball up in New Jersey. What was your high school experience like? Did you play any other sports?
I did. So I played football, I weightlifted, and I did baseball. Those were the three sports that I played. Luckily we have some really good indoor facilities, so I was able to play baseball just about year round. I wasn't, I guess, playing games in the winter months from December to, really like March. But every other month I was pretty much playing. I was playing all fall, all spring, all summer on different teams and stuff like that. Yeah, football took up my fall and weightlifting took up my winters. And I wish I was good enough to play basketball. I just wasn't. So I just kind of left it to all my friends to play basketball. But yeah, I played multiple sports. I think that's the benefit to being from the Northeast. You kind of have that opportunity to do so. Not that you don't have it down here, but it seems to be a little bit easier up there, just because of the conditions with the weather and stuff like that.
You've already got I think you said 8, 9 years, as a college coach, if you will, trainer, and now strength coach. But you're still very much at the beginning of your career, maybe chapter one. And I'm in chapter 3 or 4 as a retired AD. Looking back on your high school and your college baseball experience, I always ask this question. Can you think of a moment, and maybe at the time it didn't seem like much. But now, looking back from your perspective, you can say that was a significant moment for me. Anything come to mind?
Well, I think really like a big moment for me was the realization that baseball wasn't going to be a career. I think when I was, in high school, I was one of the better players in the state. Again, I'm not trying to talk myself up. You did say this was a little bit of a bragging moment, but I did, I was pretty good back in high school back in New Jersey. So I actually have 7 records at the high school that I played baseball and still have to this day, still have them. So like I did a pretty good job for myself there. I went to college. I started as a freshman. I made an error. I think it was maybe like 20 games into the season. I dropped the fly ball in the outfield and I never started a game after that that season, I should say. And then I think what ended up happening was there was a big like, like baseball might not be the moneymaker for me that I thought it was going to be. And I really needed to take more time to invest in my career and my future. So there was a time actually after my junior season where I decided to focus more on school. I don't know if there was one specific moment or day, I just kind of realized that my playing career wasn't going to carry me as far as I thought it was, right? So as good as I was in high school, I was a pretty average college baseball player who made the decision to kind of focus more on school after his junior year. I ended up not playing baseball my senior year of college and focused solely on becoming an athletic trainer and being the best athletic trainer that I could possibly be. And it ended up working out pretty well for me because I was able to get a couple jobs that at the time I really didn't expect to get. 22 years old, working in a professional baseball locker room, basically with 6 of the 9 starters were all stars in the big leagues. Like I had a lot of talent around me, and I was in a really fortunate position. I won a championship in pro ball. I've had a really fun ride. I've been to Omaha in college. There's just been a lot of things that happened early in my career that honestly, if you were to ask me where would I be at 40 years old, I'm 32 now, but where would I be at 40 years old? I would be saying maybe starting my career in college, right? So like, or at this big baseball school or this big baseball program. And I've just been fortunate to kind of land where I'm at and just kind of hit the ground running when I got here.
Oh no, absolutely. But again, we're going to take a first break, and then we're going to come back, talk about your early experience at the professional level. But let's go and take that break. Our guest today, again for listeners, is H.R. Powell. He's the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Miami Hurricane baseball team. Pretty good program. Let's go and take that break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. They're going to show you how to start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. It's going to help you promote your teams and celebrate your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast. You'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. HR, I want to go back to that moment after you'd graduated college. You mentioned that you had reached out to a high school team about a coaching job. And typically, I can see the AD doing this. I can see me doing this. Well, this kid's right out of college. He doesn't have the experience we want. But you got contacted by a professional team that said, hey, we want you to come and join our organization. How do you think that all played out?
Well, I think it worked out for me great, but how the whole kind of series of events took place was, my athletic trainer from high school actually took this job at another local high school. It was a bigger high school, a lot of money, really nice school, beautiful location, maybe 15 minutes from my house, 20 minutes from my house. So it was a perfect setup because he was looking for an assistant athletic trainer at the time. And I just graduated and I saw that this job was available. So I texted him right away. I was like, hey, what are the odds that I have an opportunity to work, alongside you? Because me and him had a good relationship. I actually trained his kids for a little bit when it came to baseball. So I had known him for a while. So the relationship was really good. Well, that relationship ended up getting me the interview and getting my foot in the door. It didn't guarantee me the job. Obviously, I ended up not getting it, but it got me in the door, got me in front of, a panel of people. Really, my first interview ever. So I didn't even practice interviewing. So I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to sell myself. And like my resume had like two lines on it basically because I had no experience. What they ended up telling me at the end of the day was that I interviewed really well. It just came down to me and an individual with 10 years of experience. They turned me down, no hard feelings. Obviously, everything was okay. And then another connection that I had, I didn't even apply for this job in pro ball. My boss, because I was working part time at a sports training facility, so baseball, soccer, basketball, just a facility where we were training athletes. And my boss there was actually the wife of the former athletic trainer for the professional baseball team that I ended up getting hired by. So my boss reached out or talked to her husband and recommended me for the position. And they just called me and brought me in. And I wasn't really expecting it. Like I told you earlier, I wasn't really planning on ever working baseball. Uh, and, long story short, I ended up getting the job. Again, second interview, just got told in my last interview that I didn't have enough experience. Really didn't think I had a chance to get a job in professional baseball. But he gave me an opportunity, and I took that opportunity and ran with it, and was able to kind of kickstart my career there.
Again, just another great story. And as you and I shared off camera, a lesson for young and older, athletic directors, coaches, and professionals about the power of networking and just putting your name out there. Um, how was that experience coming in? As you said, really your first job, 22-year old, and pretty serious position of responsibility. How was that relating with players and executives and people within the organization? There's that expression, you don't know what you don't know. Did you feel like you were, ready for that position, or were there some challenges?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was probably not ready. Like looking back on it, I probably wasn't ready. I think at the time I was confident as all hell in myself and my abilities and what I was doing. So, me being a former athlete, I was like, there's no challenge that I wasn't willing to take. And that was kind of the attitude I still have, or I took into my career and still have to this day that, you know, I may not know everything, but I'm gonna do my best to be the best at what I can, what I'm asking to be done, right? So I'm gonna do everything I can in my power to be the best strength coach, the best athletic trainer, whatever that I can possibly be, right? So when I took that job, yes, I was 22 years old. I was the youngest person in that whole organization and the locker room. So trying to convince a bunch of salty veteran anybody who doesn't know anything about independent baseball is typically people at the end of their career trying to fight their way back into affiliated baseball, which is going to be your like major league baseballs, triple A, double A, single A, all those different levels. Independent baseball is kind of below all of that, right? So I was dealing with a lot of salty veterans, and most of those guys had kind of run through everything, run through their career, and they're really kind of clawing and fighting to stay alive. But to be honest with you, it was a huge challenge for me to win those guys over. Again, it's just, I think the oldest guy on the team was like 44 or 46 years old. So me being 22, imagine me trying to tell that guy who had, 12 years in the big leagues, was an all-star 3 times, and me trying to tell him what he should be doing for his ankle or his hamstring, or he kind of would just look at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. And basically challenging me and seeing how much they can get away with. And I think the real moment that kind of changed everything there was when I finally, I put my foot down and I was like, look, I know what I'm doing. You need to trust me. This is what I think is best for you. If you don't want to listen to me or hear what I have to say, then you know what? It's your career and it's in your hands now, right? And I think the second I kind of stood up to that guy, this was the biggest baddest dude in the locker room. The second I stood up to him, nobody ever questioned me again, and my job went from miserable to the most enjoyable 2 years of my career. To be honest with you, to this, I think about it. I love what I do now, and I'm in a great situation. But I always look back at those 2 years in professional baseball and think, dang, like that really shaped me and developed me as a professional, and kind of put me in a position where I could be confident in myself even more than I already was. So it really kind of kick-started, jump-started everything for me. And at
Yeah,
the end,
and it's a great lesson again for our listeners. Just, I'm not going to say everybody, but I'm pretty confident in saying just about everybody, including me, has had that moment. Maybe not their first job, but somewhere early in their career where, they were challenged. And again, you've got to make sure you're doing everything right yourself. You can't just come out and blow smoke, but, standing up to, for lack of a better word, that locker room bully, that's a big moment for everybody. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to have HR talk about his University of Miami experience and a little bit about the transition from an athletic trainer to the strength and conditioning coach. So we've got more great stuff coming up. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. They are the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Hometown is digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Every school gets a dedicated client success manager that's going to help you every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to also tell your school's tremendous history, brag on your best role models, and bring your school's legacy to life. The website's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is H.R. Powell. He's the head strength and conditioning coach for the University of Miami Hurricane baseball team. HR, you mentioned that you first came to Miami as an athletic trainer and did that for a couple of years. Now you're the strength coach for one of their, let's face it, marquee athletic teams. How did that transition occur? How do you go from athletic trainer to strength coach?
So I really think it's about being in the right place at the right time for me. We were actually in between strength coaches. Our strength coach, while I was the athletic trainer, actually just kind of left abruptly. And I was here kind of filling in. So basically, he had about 4 weeks of programming for the guys that I was, just kind of supervising while they were doing to make sure that nobody got hurt. And what ended up happening was the athletic director here was like, "Oh, this is going to be about a 4 or 5 week process. We'll have somebody in here in 4 or 5 weeks, and then you can go back to doing what you would normally be doing." Well, that 4 or 5 weeks turned into like 3 months, I think. So what ended up happening, obviously, we ran out of programming. So I have a little bit of experience training athletes back home. I was able to, implement some of the things that I knew, also implement some of the things that I was seeing with our guys. So several injuries that we were having that were kind of the norm with the other strength coach. I was able to kind of take that information and design programs around that with my injury prevention background. So me having, the ability to understand baseball from playing it, understand the injuries that come along with it, and how, from an athletic training standpoint, sports medicine standpoint, how to fix those and prevent those injuries from happening. I was able to take all of that knowledge and all of that experience and write like a very direct program for the specific needs to our players. And what ended up happening was I wrote that programming while we were in the hiring process. I was actually on the board, so I was actually recruiting people for the strength coach job. And so since it took so long and my programming started to get implemented, the players actually at some point were just like, you know what, we really like what you're doing. And they went to our head coach and were like, we like everything that HR is doing. We feel the best we've ever felt. We feel stronger. We feel healthy. And we would like HR to be the strength coach. I had no idea the players went and did this. I was just sitting in my office one day and our head coach comes in. And if you guys knew who our head coach was at the time, he's extremely like stern and serious, great guy, but like very direct and to the point. And when he comes to my office, I know something's probably wrong. And he approached me and I was like, oh man, what did I do now? You know, did I do something wrong? Whatever. And he's like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, I don't know. Well, you tell me what's going on. He goes, why do I have players coming to me asking if you can be our strength coach? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't say anything to them. I maybe they like what I'm doing. They love it. He goes, they love it. They love it. You know, how would you feel about doing that? At first, it was me. He offered me to do both jobs. He's like, do you think you can do both jobs? Do you think you could be the athletic trainer and be the strength coach? And at first, I was like, yeah, we can do this. Like, I can do it. It's going to be tough, but I think I can handle it. And then it was probably about 2 weeks into that where I was like, it's just not fair to both positions because I'm 90% in each spot. And I think the athlete was probably suffering a little bit. And I told him, I was like, look, I don't think this is going to work as well as I thought it was. I think we need to bring on another athletic trainer if you want me to stay in the strength and conditioning role. And he was like, well, this is where I want you. This is where I think you're going to benefit the team the most. We want you in the weight room with our guys every day. So we'll go out and we'll find an athletic trainer for you guys or for you. So, and that was great. So I was happy. The transition was relatively seamless, to be honest with you. Um, you know, my experience at the time as a strength coach was pretty minimal, to be honest with you. And I feel like, again, I had a lot to learn and I was confident in myself and my abilities that I was going to put a good product out there, but I knew in the back of my mind that I had to be on top of my stuff. I had to educate myself. I had to work 100 times harder than any other strength coach in the country to kind of play catch up. And that's really what I ended up doing for probably ultimately, the last 3 of the 5 years that I've been doing the strength and conditioning job. I spent 3 years really just honing my craft, mentoring under as many people as I could mentor, teaching in the exercise science program here, kind of learning as much as I could, educating. I feel like I learned better through education. So when I teach people how to do things, I'm learning it better. It's sticking with me more than if I were just to be saying it to the general population. So me actually teaching in the exercise science program here was very helpful. Yeah, I mean, I just right place, right time, 2 times in my career, I guess, 3 times if you want to call it 3 times. And it's benefited me really well. And again, I'm fortunate. I'm just really fortunate to be where I'm at.
Well, again, right place at the right time is certainly a factor, but also you were obviously knocking it out of the park as a trainer. And, you mentioned the injury prevention and performance enhancing. I mean, a strength coach, um, I guess here's my question. Okay. How do you incorporate performance enhancing activities, whether it's running, lifting, stretching, whatever it is, um, at the Division I level, where let's face it, winning is the yardstick. That's how we measure success. Um, and at the same time, this is my word, not yours, maximize the injury prevention. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah. So how can we get our guys to perform at the highest level while minimizing injury as best as we can, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of a fine line you have to walk. You're kind of flirting with getting your guys as powerful and as big and fast and strong as you possibly can, and then the injury side of things. So it's a really fine line right there. It takes experience. It takes failure to kind of understand, what's the right thing to do, what's not the right thing to do. But for me, it really all starts with what we call a needs analysis. So understanding the needs of your sport, the demands of your sport, the movements that occur in your sport, and the common injuries that come along with playing baseball or any sport in general. You can then kind of work backwards. So for me, it's like, okay, this is the end goal. The style of the way that the game is played today is more powerful, more explosive. So we got guys who are throwing harder, hitting baseballs farther, right? So power is the name of the game now, right? We need guys to be physical, powerful. So we start there. So, okay, this is what we need: a powerful athlete who can rotate well, who can move side to side, so laterally well. Okay, not necessarily up to down like your squats and things like that. Those aren't as important. But we need guys who can, at the end of the day, uh, move with power and speed, but also do that in a safe manner and be healthy. So understanding the common injuries that come along with the sport are going to be huge. And then again, working kind of backwards from there. So once you create that needs analysis, it's actually really just kind of plug and chug at that point. So we know what our power exercises are. So that's what we want to focus on. We know the common injuries with baseball players are going to be elbow, probably the most common, shoulder, and then like your oblique, I guess, or your low back. Those are going to be areas that are going to be common injury sites for baseball players. So how can we attack this? There's a lot of different I can name exercises all day specific to the needs of baseball, but at the end of the day, it's really just understanding what we can do to counteract the overuse nature of the sport of baseball. It's very repetitive. It's the same movement over and over and over again, whether you're throwing, swinging. Obviously, there's switch hitters, which kind of balance you out just a little bit, but they're not nearly as common as just obviously the right-handed or the left-handed batter. So that repetitive nature of the sport, the overuse nature of the sport, is going to be something that you have to combat all year long, and really just prepare your guys in the off season to handle that load throughout the year.
Boy, it all makes perfect sense. Um, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but obviously, I think you're going to be a tremendous resource for our listeners. If one of them wanted to reach out and add you to their network, maybe pick your brain a little bit about all things hurricane baseball, or just find out more about the program. Maybe they've got a high school prospect for you. What's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I guess that probably be my email. It's the easiest one to remember. It's H Powell, Powell, at miami.edu. So H Powell at miami.edu. You
All
just
right.
email
And I'm
me
sure you
everything.
can follow the Hurricanes on Twitter and all sorts of social media platforms.
Yeah.
Hey, we're visiting with H.R. Powell, the strength coach at the University of Miami for the baseball team. We're coming back with some more, but we got to take another quick break. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that I used every single day as an athletic director, and you should be using it too. Um, things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Uploading digital forms, communicating with coaches and parents and student athletes, sending rosters to your state association. If you're an athletic director, Home Campus will make your life so much easier. And all you have to do to get started is go to homecampus.com. That's it. Go to homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then ended up with little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraising program out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their other platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraising platform, go to snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting today with H.R. Powell, the head strength and conditioning coach for the University of Miami baseball program. HR, you and I were talking about this. The best practice, if you will, would be for a high school to have a full-time certified strength and conditioning coach. You know, they've got their CSCS, they know what they're going to do. They're going to maximize the strength and again, make sure kids don't get hurt. Not all schools have the ability to do that. So, is there anything, any resources or tips or ideas that you can share with a listener who might be at a small school? Maybe they're a small school baseball coach or a small school AD. They're not going to have that full time strength coach. Any tips that you can provide for those folks?
Yeah, I think the great thing about the world we live in today is there's a lot of stuff on the internet. There's a lot of stuff on social media that people can have access to. There's some really good books out there that people just have to be willing to sit down and read that can really give you guys a lot of information, without all the fancy technology, without a ton of experience. I can tell you exactly what I used as when I started, right? There's, obviously, like I told you, there's things that I was learning. There's two books that I read. One is called Movement Over Maxes. This is by Zach Dakin. It's a very good foundational program. It teaches you the importance over movement quality versus loading these movements super heavy, and how that's going to help with long-term athletic development, but basically the ability to get better and better and better every single day and avoid that plateau. And then again, help with the injury. So it's called Movement Over Maxes with Zach Dakin. Great book. Another book, which I think has probably helped my career maybe more than anything, is called Conscious Coaching. And I don't know if anybody's ever recommended that book before. Conscious Coaching is basically a book that talks about creating buy-in, and getting athletes to buy into your program and buy into your coaching style, and understanding the different types of players there are out there, and the different learning styles and the different playing styles that have allowed me to connect with my athletes and build great relationships with them, and ultimately create that buy-in, build that trust with the athlete. Because at the end of the day, if they trust you, pretty much anything you say or do will be beneficial, right? Because they're going to buy into everything that you have to put on the table there, because they're going to know that you have their best interests in mind and you care about them, as a person, not just as an athlete. So I think this book is great. It's helped me tremendously. I use it all the time to this day. I run the intern program here at the University of Miami, and I actually am teaching this book right now at the moment. So we're going over all the different learning styles, with our athletes or with our interns at the moment. So, great book. Recommend both of those books actually tremendously. I think they're really good. You could also follow our social media. We have a performance page. It's called Canes Baseball Performance. We post from time to time some different exercises that we like with our baseball players specifically. It's a very baseball specific social media account. Um, but yeah, those are the three sources that I would recommend more than anything, obviously, and just kind of getting out there and understanding the different training systems that there are out there between triphasic, and then your different French contrast and dynamic efforts and different things. There's millions and millions of things that we can kind of talk about here. I can dive into this forever, but if you guys really want to know anything specific about certain training styles or certain sports, or do you need, if you want to know a specific strength coach for a certain sport that you would like to follow, I kind of have network with all of those people. So if you want to know who I would recommend for soccer or basketball or football, even, I can give you guys some things. I know I'm a baseball guy, but I have, good connections with just about every sport here at the university, and kind of help you guys, look in the right direction for educational pieces.
Well, I love those two titles that you gave. I'm not in the game anymore. I was a football and a track coach as a coach, but I love that movement over maxes. Back when I was the strength coach as a football coach, and I use that strength coach in air quotes because I was not certified. It was all about maxing, and then we did a lot of power cleans and things like that from my track background. Other coaches are looking at that like, what are you doing? What is that for? But it was very max oriented. That was kind of our goal. So obviously things have changed a lot since I was involved. And your other title, Conscious Coaching, I love that title. I'm going to get those books. Great stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's go and talk real quick. We're going to go personal here. You and I have a common connection. Teresa Conrath, she's a longtime athletic director, Marathon High School. When I was the athletic director at Palmer Trinity, just not too far down the road from University of Miami, our teams went head to head. How do you know Teresa and, going to that next level knowledge there?
Well, I married her daughter to keep it simple. So I actually met my wife while working with the university. And I met my daughter my wife, Teresa's daughter, at Palmer Trinity. It was the first time I ever met Teresa. Um, I'm sure you know Teresa very well. Obviously, she's a tough cookie. She's got a big personality, and she's gotten it done for a long time, and that's why she had so much success as an athletic director because she knew the right way to do things, and she didn't really let anybody kind of push her around and convince her to do anything other than what was best for the program for the school. And she kind of took all of that into her parenting, and she's been a great friend, mentor for me as well. And she's helped me a ton in a lot of different areas other than how to make sure I take care of her daughter. Otherwise, she will take care of me, I'm sure. So,
I love it. Great description. And again, you're absolutely right. She was, really I've known a lot of ADs in my career, and I'll say one of my very favorite athletic directors. Everything you said was true. She was a pro, but she was fun to hang around with. Her teams, her coaches, were always top rate. And as I shared with you, I got to watch both of her daughters kind of grow up when our teams would play. We beat them a couple times, but most of the time they were beating us pretty soundly. So, very cool stuff. Always great, when there's that little extra connection there.
I will
Um,
say her coaching style, is unbelievable. She is, like I don't know, like if I would particularly love playing for her. I feel like I'd be scared of her playing for her. I've seen her practices. I actually went when she was coaching basketball. I've went to the practices, see how she run things. I just worked a volleyball tournament for her over the winter break, and she was coaching again there. She's an intense coach. But the good thing about it, like the players really respect her. They hear what she has to say. They learn from her. And again, she's a great mentor for all of them. And again, I appreciate everything that she's done for me. And obviously, it's fun to watch her in her element because it's like a flip switches when she steps on the court or on the field. She's a different person than when you see her outside the facility. So
oh yeah, very, very tough competitor. No question
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
HR, this has been great getting to know you, hearing more about the program at the University of Miami, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an AD, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. When we come back, going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put three things in the toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what HR Powell is going to put in his new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for their sponsorship of the AD Toolbox segment. If you've never used a survey to kind of take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already get feedback. They hear from those complainers, the ones that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable resource to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that's going to help you take your athletic program from good to great. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. Our Back to College episode is featured today. H.R. Powell, the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Miami baseball program. Has a tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on the first job. HR, what three items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I might need a couple more than three, but I think, for me, the biggest one that's helped me is the concept of not being scared to fail. I think that's probably my number one tool. I think the best way to learn is to fail. We don't really know what works best, especially in this field. There's a lot of theories as to, what training systems and what way is the best way to train your athletes. And it seems like every year there's a new system that comes out, but it always tends to kind of fall back to one thing: trial and error, and seeing what works best with your teams and your players. I think everybody tries so hard to be perfect, and is so scared to fail nowadays that it leaves a lot of the learning um, aspect out of a lot of things that we do in our career. And that kind of goes into my next thing: is just, always be willing to learn. Your way is not the only way. It's not the only right way. There's a lot of different ways to get this job done. At the end of the day, there's really no bad exercise, just bad coaching. And I think that's a really important concept to understand, that, an exercise may look really cool on Instagram. You might have a guy that's standing on one leg on a Bosu ball, swinging a bat that's tied to a rubber band that's attached to the weight stack, and everybody's like, oh, that's gonna like make me the best baseball player ever. Great, but like, what did that athlete do to get to that point? You're seeing a lot of finished products on social media, and I think it's really important to understand that there's a lot of things that go into getting to that finished product. And sometimes less is more. Mastering the basics is going to get you a whole lot further than trying to, look cool on social media with this crazy exercise that nobody's ever seen before. Um, you know, and then the last, thing, having good mentors, good resources is going to be really important in your continued education. So for me, I have a lot of mentors. I'm not going to go down the list of all of them, but I do have a lot of mentors, a lot of people who have helped me along the way, have made me a better coach. A lot of good readings. I mentioned conscious coaching earlier. I think that's something that everybody should read, especially when you're in the coaching lane of things. I think it's going to make you better. And then again, that concept of networking. It's such an important tool to have, because if you network well, I promise you, it's going to get you your next job. I think networking is a huge component as to why I'm where I'm at today. And that also sets me up for future success. I think my continued networking. I just spoke at the ABCA this winter, which is the American Baseball Coaches Association. There were 7,800 people, coaches, players, strength coaches, sport coaches, organizational GMs. All these different people were at these meetings. And I was able to be fortunate enough to present in front of all of them. So I just made 7,800 new connections, not to mention the 1,200 that were watching online from another location, who, and the amount of emails and things that I got after that was almost overwhelming, to be honest with you. I don't even know if I've still gotten back to all of them. But it just shows that I'm, able to network with all of these people now if I want to, and I choose to, which I will. And I recommend for anybody who's in that situation, because you never know who you're going to see 5, 10 years from now, when you're maybe looking for another job, or maybe you're not even looking for another job. And that one person from that conference remembers my presentation and says, you know what, HR is a great strength coach who I'd love to bring on board wherever he's at. Right. And they might call me, right. They might remember my presentation. So networking, I think, is really important. It's going to help set you up for, a bigger and better career.
Oh, absolutely. I love them all. And they're, even though you're not an athletic director, you know, some of those recommendations are some of our most frequently recommended toolbox tips by people in the profession. So again, you can't go wrong, as you said, with networking and finding that mentor. HR, thanks again for sharing with our audience. All the best as the Hurricane baseball season really is kind of kicking off. And one more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way they can do it?
The best way is going to be email. It'll be hpowell@miami.edu. You can also follow us on our social media, our Canes Baseball Performance account. It's literally just Canes Baseball Performance. And then I have my personal account, which is HR_Powell 12. HR_Powell 12. So you can find me in either one of those locations. You can DM me there or email me, and I'll get back to you obviously as soon as I can.
All right. Well, HR, thanks again. And as I mentioned, all the best in the coming spring season.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Thanks again for listening. Come back next time for another great interview and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast.